All right. I don't know. Does someone know if we have quorum yet?
We do.
We do.
All right, then I say let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Happy spring. I am in Washington, D.C., behaving myself, but operating on one laptop screen. So I'm going to be flipping back and forth and looking confused, and so forgive me. It's nice to see all of you. And of course, my computer is slow. So I may require help, but not yet. So let me get back to the agenda. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
None for us.
Okay. All right. Then we'll go right to public comment. Kim, why don't we start with you?
Yes, Amy, that shelter that GMT had next to the post office, they removed that and they left the benches there, and people are still shooting up needles and drugs activities. I walked by there yesterday. There was
Thank you
like
for that feedback.
yeah, it's like 10, 15 people like shooting up needles. I don't feel comfortable going by there. They're too
Thank,
scary.
okay. I appreciate that.
Okay, you're
And
welcome.
we'll look into it.
Have fun in Washington, D.C.
Well, thank you. All right. Is there any other member of the public uh, present?
And so nobody in the room other than staff and board members?
Okay. All right. Then we will move forward to the consent agenda. And in that part of the consent agenda, we have the board meeting minutes from March 17th, the check register, which is on pages 6 to 10, and our April 2026 financial report. Any comments, questions, or does anybody want to make a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda. Amy?
Thanks, Susan. We have a second?
A second.
Was it Andrea, I think?
Yes, it was.
Perfect. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Great. Consent agenda passes. Let's move on to talking about some more service modifications. Those are outlined in our board packet, and I'll turn that over to Clayton for discussion.
And I'm very happy to report, I had thought that I was going to be presenting this myself, but we do have Chris Damiani with us. And so I'm going to be turning it over to Chris, and he's going to talk to us about what we learned at all of our public meetings and walk us through the recommendations for the 4, 5, and 86.
Thanks.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone. The items for this agenda item are on pages 28 to 59 in the board packet, with the suggested motion on page 28 or in Clayton's read ahead. Reminder that we are looking for approval for 3 route changes, one with the adjustment on the routing for the number 5, another one for the proposed elimination of the number 4, and then an adjusted schedule on the Montpelier link with our urban-only operations of that route. So I first wanted to highlight our public meetings and outreach that we did. That can also be found on page 29 of the packet. We did our normal outreach, such as posting on the buses or social media or posting on the Transit app. But I did want to highlight some other ones that we did during this round, which included utilizing some members of our Rider Experience and Access Council to hand out onboard flyers. There were announcements made by our DTC staff over the PA system there. We tabled at National Life, UVM Medical Center, and the Waterbury State Office Complex. That was a really good opportunity for us to have some longer conversations with folks. And then we also put out a survey with questions such as how often people ride, how the proposed change might impact their schedule, and then some other, timing stuff, just so we can take that in for scheduling purposes. And so for the first route that I'm going to go over is the Route 5 Pine Street. Just a reminder, that is the adjustment for the number 5 to serve more of the Champlain Parkway between Flynn Ave and Lakeside Ave. The primary change for this route was to better serve various social services that moved over from downtown to the Innovation Center. And I was just going to go over a couple things that I put in the board packet, one of which was the percentage of discount riders on the number 5 is higher than our average across all of our local routes, which is around 33%. So that was sort of one indication that this change might help better serve folks who are utilizing those social services. In the survey that we put out, 50% of the respondents stated that the change would have either no impact or help improve their travel along this corridor, and 12% said that it would worsen their trip, and then about 40% did not respond to this particular question. Most of the feedback that we got via email or from the meetings mostly focused on other routing changes, routing suggestions to the number 5, or just reminding GMT to communicate with the number 5 riders once the route is approved, the route change is approved. Before I move on to the other routes, I'm just going to go through each of the routes. If there's any questions on the number 5, I'll take those now and then move over to the other 2 routes.
I see Susan has a question.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I just had a quick question. I know this is an area that's under sort of active change, and I was just wondering to what extent we have been in communication with folks talking about potential development there, especially residential development, and whether this change aligns with those projections.
Yeah, so staff has had some initial conversations, say, with Hula on, they're developing that first building right at the corner of the Champlain Parkway and Lakeside Ave. So this is also, helping set the groundwork for some of that.
Do you know if there's any other planned larger scale residential development along the Pine Street corridor?
At this moment, not that I'm aware of. It's all primarily in the South End Innovation District under the Hula property.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions? And I'll let Chris keep going.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know who said yes.
Oh, and Alana in the boardroom, go ahead.
Beautiful.
Hi, Chris. I was just wondering if you had asked any questions or anyone had brought up any thoughts about the direction of the loop, only because there are some services on Pine Street, but there's also a lot of residences. It's heavily residential currently. And then the Innovation District is heavily service-based, and the Pine Street is a connector at one end, but then is not a connector at the other. So I wondered if you had put some thought, or if there was some analysis on the direction.
Yeah, so the primary reason when we first did the sort of smaller loop that's currently in effect right now, the primary reason for the clockwise rotation of the loop portion is because there's only a multi-use path on the east side of the parkway, and there is either drainage or not great spots to provide access for bus stops on the west side of the parkway. And so that was the primary driver behind the clockwise loop between Pine and the parkway.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, I will move on to the route for Essex Center. So a reminder, the proposal for this route was to eliminate the route entirely. As we've mentioned in the past, this route or some combination of this route with the old number 10 connecting to Williston was on the underperforming route list from the route performance report from VTrans. One thing we did want to look at between the last board meeting and now is the impact to the ADA program if the number 4 was eliminated. So when we looked at data over this current fiscal year, so from July to March, and when you account for the portion or for riders who would still have access to ADA because of the number 2 Essex route, there are approximately 78 unique riders who would be impacted by this change, which totals about 1,500 rides over that 9-month period. So those are riders that would no longer have ADA service moving forward if this service does not continue. And one other thing in the board packet that I did also provide was, we know that this route is primarily heavily used by Essex Western School District students. And so there was a chart in there that just showed on a monthly basis, about 20% of the rides are students either going to schools in Essex or transferring to the number 2 to go to the tech center in downtown Burlington or for other trip purposes. Not surprisingly, at our public meetings, overwhelmingly folks who either responded to the survey or came out to the meetings or emailed GMT really stated how important this route was to their community, particularly for students and older adults. And also just that it is a connection between Essex Junction and Essex Town, particularly for Essex Town students to access places in Essex Junction. I do want to also note that it is noted in the motion that there is a provision in the motion for Clayton to negotiate with the school district on potentially helping pay for the operating costs of this route under the statute changes that the legislature is currently working its way through. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions on the number 4.
Questions? Go ahead. I was waiting for Raj or Bethany. Go ahead, Raj.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for this, and thanks for the outreach in the town and the city for this. I guess I'm curious if there's a breakdown for the ADA rides between the 2 communities. It's okay if we don't have it now or we don't have it. Just kind of curious what that, if you have
I don't
it,
have
that's what it is.
I don't remember what the general percentages between the 2 communities, but we can certainly get that for you, Raj.
And I guess I'd also be curious. Well, never mind. I'll just follow up with Clayton later. I think it's going to be a longer conversation. So again, appreciate the outreach for this. Thanks.
So I have a couple of questions. Elimination always feels so final. And I'm wondering whether and I'm guessing the answer is yes, Chris, but I'm wondering whether we looked at models of like a couple runs in the morning and a couple runs in the afternoon, 5 days a week, or something that kind of works around the school schedule, but still would allow public riders to a smaller access to this route.
And I'll say that's certainly been part of the, I think, conversation between Clayton and the school district on here's what it would cost for the entirety of the existing service as it is, and I think as part of their negotiations would include maybe some truncated version of that service. And just a reminder that if this is approved, this is not slated to start until August anyway, so we still have some time, and that's why the motion includes a sort of deadline of June 1st, which is when we are working on finalizing our schedule for August.
If we were to eliminate it and then everything works out and we're able to renegotiate with the school so that we have some sort of school-based shuttle-y thing, would it keep ADA access intact?
So it would keep ADA access intact for whatever the span of service is of whether it's the current 4 in its form right now, or if it's a truncated version, it would just be a smaller window of time that folks can access the ADA service. So right now, in the morning, it's from about 6:45 to 8:45, and then from 2:30 to 5:45, 6. And so those are the times that folks can access ADA service who live outside of, say, the Essex Junction route. We're primarily served by the number 4.
And sorry, Amy, just a quick
No,
follow-up to
Raj,
that.
yeah.
Those 78 that are identified as being impacted by this, are those folks that, this is probably obvious, but are those folks riding in those 2 windows, the morning window and the afternoon window? Is that
That's correct.
log? Okay. And is there any, I guess it's too early to know, but if the school district did decide to pick this up, would that just be a school special only? Or would that be, or is it kind of piggybacking, I think, on one of Amy's questions, I think a little bit.
They would be open to the public, just similar to our other routes that we operate within Burlington, or any of our other routes, all open to the public.
Okay, thank you.
Susan?
So will this conversation that Clayton has also involve the city and the town?
Yes.
Yeah, Clayton has been in communication with the city and town on this.
Yeah. And it may be the city, the town, and the school all chipping in together towards that contribution. So I would imagine that even though Essex School District would probably be the largest contributor, I would think that we may have all three contributing.
Important to note here that they're all the same taxpayers, and already in the past 48 hours, I've heard from quite a few with just saying it's going to be a very complex conversation as this moves forward. You know, if it's multi-passenger students and public, I'll just say it's just going to be an interesting conversation on how that gets renegotiated, since it is the same. You know, will the school district decide are they going to be able to do it from existing budget, which I'm assuming if they have any plans at all, since the budget was just passed, that they'll have to for the first year. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
I'm just, I guess, curious if there's the possibility that some redesigned route focusing on this population, the school population, if it has the likelihood of being then a more successful route by our measures. So I don't know if that's possible.
I would suspect with the negotiations that we're going to be talking with them about routing as well. And I would anticipate with them providing more local match, or essentially having local match pay for the entire thing, that they'll have much more specific, requests for the service.
Okay, thanks.
Other ponderings? Yeah, Andrea.
Yeah, we may have covered this before. I can't remember, but remind me how it works if so in our route performance report, the 4 is underperforming. Does that just come off of our reporting to the state if it's fully locally funded? Or like, how does that work if it's outside of those regular funding sources?
So the state will continue to keep it on the route performance report, but I have confirmed with VTrans if we're using local funds for that and not the state and federal that they distribute, that they would be okay with its retention. It's really, they're looking to preserve their funding.
Okay, thanks.
Dan is giving us a thumbs up. I love when Dan pops up and does that. Thanks, Dan. The other question is, what happens to our board makeup if we potentially lose the town? Do we lose Paul? Do we lose another municipality? I don't want to lose Paul. Paul stays.
Yes, and so certainly I think the biggest risk of ending the service and not having an agreement to provide service means that there would be no service in the town of Essex, and I think that would likely lead to them departing the organization. I think that as they considered this last year and were just one vote shy of departing, they may be considering that again this year. And so I think that the reality is that the town of Essex is probably going to be, year by year, and we have things a bit more settled with this route.
Yeah, go ahead, Arash.
I'm sorry, one more follow-up question.
Don't apologize.
The idea that VTrans funding for this would go away, but kind of getting back to who gets to ride the bus if the school district picks it up, if it's not a school special strictly, and the general public can ride the bus, it would seem that that's still serving those municipalities and the assessments in some form. I mean, that just seems a little disjointed, I guess. I'm trying to get my head around how that would work
Essentially what we would be looking to do is maintain the current level of assessment for Essex Junction and town of Essex, and that the contributions would be on top of that.
So there'd be no reduction in this. If this goes to strictly school district or primarily school district, the negotiations, if it goes away, but the school district picks it up largely, the assessment for the junction would stay the same.
I mean, this will be negotiated, but that's what we would try to start with. Is that the assessments would stay the same.
Why would that be?
Just because that's gonna be the start of our negotiating position. And if the town, city, feel that it should be lowered, then and then it just essentially is gonna create, the cost of the service is gonna be the cost of the service. And so whether it comes out of the formula for assessment or out of the negotiation, I'm not sure it really, is gonna matter. So if the town of Essex and Essex Junction were to increase their assessment levels, every dollar that assessment level is cut would then be a dollar that would have to be raised locally as well, because all of the funding for the service would be coming locally.
Oh, I see. I guess, okay. So the school district picks it up. Let's say it's $112,000. The city could come back and say, we'd like our assessment to go down X amount of dollars because here's what we think is our share of the four. And the school district, the town being out completely, let's say the school district pick up the entire 112, and the junction could come back and say, we'd like our reduction since the school district's paying for it. Is that?
So the 112 cost is considering both the town and Essex Junction contributing at the same level as their assessment. The other thing to keep in mind is that as long as the town and the city are members of GMT, that assessment is set by us. And so I'm sorry, Raj, that I'm kind of walking through this live with you now.
No, that's okay. That's all right. I'm happy to pick it up later. It's just more of a trying to figure out how to think about it. So I think, as you said the other night in the meeting, it's going to be an ongoing conversation, and we don't have to hammer it out now. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. We did have a question in the room with Alana.
Oh, good. Okay.
Chris, I'm sure you walked us through this before, but can you just talk us through the financial benefit, like the whole picture of financial benefits? Because I'm sure we're pursuing this for a reason. It's nobody wants to cut service, and it would be helpful to me to just understand what the other side of this is and what's driving it. If you could just talk us through that, because it seems like, if you're losing ADA service, there's some cost shifts there, and how that, and there's also considerations maybe around stick factors, but I'm not sure that if this is neutral for stick factors. And then other financial impacts, if you could just talk us through that. I think there's been a calculation at this point.
Yes, and so I can talk to some of that. If we were to eliminate this service, we'd have approximately $170,000 worth of savings for both fuel and hourly wages and benefits. But the net savings will end up being about 112,000, because then we would not be getting the formula for assessment from the town of Essex and Essex Junction. And so the net savings here would be 112,000, and I believe that includes the reduction in ADA as well. And so that's the benefit. The reason why we're considering this, dastardly deed, is that it would save us a net of $112,000 a year. And as far as the stick factors, because this is a low performing route, it would in all likelihood improve our competitiveness for the stick factors.
Would it change the number that we receive?
No. It just puts us more squarely where we are.
Yes.
And how many people does this route serve?
Chris, what's the monthly ridership number?
It's around 600. It fluctuates somewhere in the 600 range.
So I want us to continue to chew on the Route 4, and I want to talk about the Montpelier link. Raj, do you have one more question? You have a pondering face on.
Yeah, just, one of those interesting board member problems when you're on a council. My fiduciary struggle is real. And, this student replacement, I mean, students barely make up 15-20% of this route, so it's still a huge impact. And, it's just obviously frustrating for everybody, but it's when I hear $112,000 savings in the overall grand scheme of things, it really doesn't sound like much. Sorry, it just doesn't feel like it's worth it to me for this. But I'm frankly worried about level assessment or shift in assessment for even fewer riders. So the financial impact in our community to keep this service at its current cost to serve fewer people is incredibly frustrating. And I'm not sure, frankly, the community is going to support that, considering where we are right now in the economy. So just wanted to stress that there will be significant pushback, I think, which will be disappointing for this to continue in the community, considering I think when people get their heads around how much is actually being saved versus how much our one community is going to be asked to do this versus shifting it around the entire county and system. So, but I don't think that's anything that nobody. I think most people in this call would probably agree with those frustrations. So I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. So I appreciate all the work on it.
No, I appreciate you articulating it. And I think that's the core of a lot of the discomfort in the conversations that we've had to have in the past couple of years, and that spiraling downward that we're very aware of. So let's have Susan go, and then I think we need to talk about the Montpelier link before we take action.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Raj, I appreciate how you articulated that. And I'm just curious if you see other ways in which the performance of the number 4 can be improved that we have not explored. So I know that's a bigger conversation, but definitely if there are ideas, I hope that as you're talking to Clayton about this, that's one aspect of the conversation you have.
Yeah, I'll just say that there are people with a million times more experience and knowledge around this topic than myself. So I have great trust and trying to be very humble and like suggesting solutions. And I don't know. I come from the place where things are just should be provided in societies like this, like transportation and post office and things like that. So this is a real struggle from a world viewpoint. There should be busing. There should be, So I keep coming back to that's a huge. I mean, of all things, I'm up in the Sandhill. I'm up in that area of the town a lot, recreating, and I know an awful lot of people that work in that area, in the manufacturing area. And I'm just shocked and disappointed that that can't be leveraged somehow. Not by this group. I think it's just I don't understand the dynamics involved there. I would have thought that the retail center of Williston, the manufacturing hub of the town, the experience, the village, all would have done better with this. And I feel like it's just been a death knell for 10 years of self-fulfilling prophecy. So, but again, I don't know what the answer is. And there are people here that I know have tried incredibly hard to keep it going. And I appreciate that.
With that said, and I appreciate that, and I think that's what brings all of us here together, is that is a tough nut to crack in a space where things should be better and work differently, and yet here we are. So, Chris, let's talk through the Montpelier changes, which are not as drastic or as heartbreaking as what we just talked about, and hopefully a little bit faster.
Yeah, so on the Montpelier link, this schedule change certainly got a lot of attention via a survey, our public meetings, and our public outreach. as we were working through the schedule adjustment of the route, we really wanted to use this urban only operations as an opportunity to see where the pain points are, what are other opportunities that we should be looking at as it relates to the link schedule. Overwhelmingly from the folks that we did hear, either in person or via the survey or via email, folks really, really wanted to state that they valued the service, that they didn't want to lose service on the route, and that they frankly wanted more options than we currently provide. Knowing that we are fiscally constrained with the service, we did use the feedback we received to help build the draft schedules that are outlined on page 36 in the board packet, and really focused it around the 5 employment centers that the route serves. And so some of the factors that led to the structure of the schedule was that riders who work at UVM and UVM-MC stated that they required more options, particularly in the morning, to better accommodate later start times. Riders who worked at National Life or in downtown Montpelier generally had a more concentrated start time for work. And then riders who work at the Waterbury State Office Complex, they stated that they generally wanted more options, and if they had to choose, having at least an additional option in the morning was preferable over an additional option in the evening. And then we also heard from folks who, one of the opportunities is trying to utilize the Wilson Park ride more in both directions. And so that was something that we tried to take into account in the development of this schedule. And finally, we did ask, knowing that, we only have a certain number of hours that we can allocate to the service with our budget. We asked about repurposing the midday trip hours for additional trips during commuter times. And most responses indicated that they would either have no impact, or a smaller section of folks did say that they either relied on it or liked having the option of a midday trip. And so you'll see on page 36 of the sort of proposed service structure that we're looking at having more morning and early afternoon to evening trips, and not have a direct midday trip at 12 o'clock. And so one of the other things also to keep it budget neutral is having a couple of deadhead trips, one early morning going to Montpelier and an early morning deadhead coming back from Montpelier, going back to Burlington in the late evening, to keep it under our fiscally constrained world that we're in for this particular route structure. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions on the. Oh, one thing I did forget to say is with the, folks did say that they, at least liked having the option of the midday trip. So one thing, if this service structure does get approved, is we'll really be marketing out the Guaranteed Ride Home program that Go Vermont Community Connectors runs. A lot of folks say they like having that option, and just wanted to make sure that folks are aware of that option should an emergency happen, that they need to go back home in the middle of the day.
I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I'm just curious about how the determination of deadheading at the beginning and end of the day works, in terms of that versus, an early morning and late night non-deadhead.
Yeah, so partially it's that, when we compared what the total hours of service was between the urban and rural operated trips before, that's sort of the guiding principle. And so as we were working to meet all the other times in the morning and afternoon for the other trips that you see that are in service, we're sort of running out of service to provide. And so that does save us some time by deadheading directly from the garage instead of operating a full in-service trip. And the ones where we are deadheading, I know in the evening that time averaged about 2 folks per ride or per run, and the one in the morning I think was in the 4 to 5 range, so significantly lower than the other trips throughout the day.
So I think it makes sense. I'm just trying to understand the economics of it. What would the implications of not deadheading that be?
One would be just the cost of the service. 2, we also do, this also helps a little bit with the stick factors by trimming off the really, really unproductive portions. And so as long as folks are continuing to ride the link, and hopefully more folks are riding the link. Having those longer distances could potentially help with stick factors moving forward by really focusing on those more productive times of the day.
Okay, thanks.
And correct me if I'm wrong, just for clarification there, Chris, but when we run a service that is lowly used, that hurts us for our stick factors.
Correct. Particularly on that, long of a distance.
Right, so it is not good for our stick factor competitiveness to run a route that has two riders, on a long route like that. Yeah.
Okay, Andrea, and I think we really need to move along on our agenda. This is really important. I don't want to cut off discussion, but we're going to run out of time. Andrea?
Yeah, I thought the trip by trip ridership numbers were super helpful. I'm wondering if that like time of day frequency shifts at all when the legislature is in session, when UVM is in session. Like, are there sort of differences in especially midday usage depending on like what's happening at places that this route serves?
I don't know off the top of my head over sort of individual time periods for the midday. But I think overall, the one thing we really heard is people want, or primarily commuters who are utilizing the service wanted more options. And this was sort of the way to really address that in being fiscally constrained.
Thanks.
Okay, there is a possible motion that Clayton sent out for us to consider. And I'd like to reiterate that a vote on the 4 gives us the opportunity to negotiate with the school and to continue to have conversations. And the last question I have is, if we vote to eliminate the 4 or to work in negotiations, I hate being backed into a corner, right? We can we can unvote it at any time, right? If we come up with a brilliant idea that serves us better, we can not, we have a few months to kind of go back, or are we stuck with our vote today forever?
So if we are successful with negotiating, and then we certainly can unwind this before the August implementation deadline. But the June 1st is the deadline set to finish negotiating, just so we can set that August schedule.
I struggle with permanence, everybody, in case you want to know.
Well, I mean, the other problem here too is that's 6 weeks, 5 weeks to negotiate, educate the community, get input, engage 3 boards. It feels unreasonably fast for that. So it just doesn't feel realistic, but it's just, I know we're behind, sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Any other thoughts or words of wisdom about this?
Is there a reason it's June 1st? Is there a particular significance to the June 1st date?
Because that's the time that we need to establish the August schedule. Yeah.
Okay. We do need to vote on this and to move on. There is a suggested motion. If anybody wanted to add a caveat or I don't know, feel free.
Do you want these individually, or are they all one motion?
Well, currently I'm looking.
Because I would move for the first 2. I'll move the number 5 Pine Street motion and the number 86 Montpelier Link motion be considered as written.
I think that's fair. Do we have a second for that?
I'll second that, Amy.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of changes to the 5 and the Montpelier Link, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And so taking the 4 separately, does anybody want to make a motion to do the 4 changes, negotiations, elimination? I don't know what to call it.
I guess I have a question, Clayton, about the June 1st. If that's assuming the school district would only be interested in having it start in August, is that an assumption or is that a set piece discussed with the school district?
So we change our bus schedule 3 times a year, and August is one of those times, and so that's the schedule that'll be in place from August to generally February.
So if this is a special that's negotiated just for a particular community, is that no flexibility there for rescheduling it? Or is it more of a resource driver complication and all of those kinds of things I can't imagine?
It's more of a labor issue in the sense that there's a bid process that takes several months to go through, and so that's the challenge.
Okay, understood.
Looking for a motion.
I will move with sadness to is that allowed to eliminate the Route 4 with the authorization of the general manager to negotiate a service agreement separately. Does that work?
Well, it's a good motion. None of this works.
I don't know how to reflect
No,
this
I
is
think-
not fun or
Question, does that include the deadline or no deadline? You
yeah,
had the
with
first
the
2 out
deadline
3.
of
With the deadline, okay.
with a deadline of June 1st. Yeah.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. I don't know who those voices were, but thank you for the second.
That was
Oh, thanks, Austin.
and there, I think, yeah.
Not to belabor this, but as a point of discussion, Clayton, what's the second available date past June 1st?
What is the what date?
What's the next date after June 1st for that
So,
schedule setting?
Like February, March?
Yeah, we'd start ahead probably November-ish. December will be meeting for the
Yeah.
February bid.
Yep.
So they're 2 times a year or 3 times a year?
Three. When school lets out, we do a change.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Yep.
Okay,
And so,
thank you.
Clayton, is there any way that this particular negotiation could go as late as June 15th, or would that really throw off the planning and implementation of the schedule change?
Chris, when does we have to have the schedule change going by?
I will say that it's definitely possible, but if we do not have the service structure in place by June 1st, there are cost savings in how we schedule certain routes. So if we don't know yet and are still sort of waiting in limbo, it could potentially cost more because of how we would have to schedule that service.
Yeah, I just don't see how this works. There's 2 city council meetings between now and then. The schedules are full. So I would encourage folks to consider a friendly amendment to remove to that motion to remove the deadline for further discussion. So I guess that would go to Andrea and Austin.
Is there the opportunity for the councils to have sort of a special meeting or emergency meeting to discuss this particular issue? Is that a possibility that could be planned for right now?
I don't have the ability to speak for that. That's a manager decision, and that would be a school board town. That's complex. I just wouldn't have. I'm sort of stretching what I think the city would want anyway, but knowing how it works, you know, I don't know how that conversation could be coordinated in under 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
So anyway,
So
sorry.
I think what we
do?
have, yeah, I think what we have is we have our timeline, which is set by our labor needs, and we will go with that. I think we're forced to. we're giving Clayton through this motion the ability to negotiate. And at the end, I was going to request that we have ongoing updates on this particular issue because we have the ability to rethink things also. I think it sounds like, unless there is someone who wants to put forth a friendly amendment, or if folks want to approve that June 15th timeline, which doesn't sound like it will work for GMT, I think that we should move forward with the vote or the motion that's on the table and continue to receive updates, knowing this timeline and this issue is miserable. Does anyone have any objections to me calling a vote? Okay. All those in favor of the elimination of the 4, sadly, and allowing Clayton to enter into negotiations with the school and the city and the town, the timeline of June 1st, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, I didn't get counts of that, and that was close. So if you said nay, can you just identify yourself just so I have a count of who those folks are? Raj, Henry.
Amy, I
Beth-
think that if it's not unanimous, you do need to do a roll call when it's online.
Oh, thanks, Tasha. I appreciate that. So it was Raj and Henry who voted nay. Am I missing any nays? Bethany, you would raise your hand, but you and Raj are one vote, I believe.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And so my ayes, I heard Paul, Susan, Ilana, Andrea.
Yeah.
Austin.
Yep.
Tasha.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's anybody else that I'm missing. The ayes have it. And so we're going to move forward. And I just want to recognize that this is miserable and hard, and hoping that, yes, Paul has a question.
Not a question, just a suggestion that at some point in the future, that be helpful, I think, for the board to understand the bidding process. Because it is pretty complex, so I think it might be a good educational piece for the board.
Absolutely,
Okay.
Paul.
Thanks, Paul. All right, we're going to move on. I appreciate the conversation and the thoughtfulness and the recognition of the really tough place that this puts us, both as an entity and for the people we serve and for the communities that we serve. And I appreciate the discussion around that, as well as the timeline. Next on our agenda, which I've now lost, is talking about the Title VI program.
We're going to turn that over to Jamie.
Thank you. I think I might be able to give some time back to, I don't know that this is a 15-minute agenda item. GMT, as a federal recipient of funding, is required to have a Title VI program every 3 years, which is an anti-discrimination plan that based on race, color, and national origin in our programs and activities. So we go through this process to update. We keep a log of any Title VI complaint that we receive. Anybody who has filled out information stating that they've been discriminated against, and every 3 years we include that in a new program. So it's a long one. It's the full plan is in the packet. The Title VI portion of the plan does not change very much. There's a procedure. It's dictated by the federal government, and we follow that process. Where we did see significant changes is the limited English proficiency plan part of our Title VI program. If you had a chance to take a look at that, basically we go through our entire service area and we identify populations of folks and their English proficiency, and we kind of lay that out by who speaks English very well, who speaks English less than well, who is not using English as their primary communication. And then that helps GMT identify ways for us to provide language assistance as we are doing campaigns, talking about public meetings, bus map and guide, or just giving general information or feedback about our services. So I wasn't going to go through every single map or chart, but just note that we pull this data from the American Community Survey, the census, and our own GTFS data. There are certain things that we have to do if we meet certain thresholds of individuals. For example, in our last plan from 2020 or 2023, sorry, we had a significant portion of our riders who spoke French as their primary language, and that triggered us to put safe harbor language provisions in place, which means all of our vital documents are automatically translated into French. So when we have our Title VI announcements on our buses, our website, when we have applications, they were automatically translated into French. We did not have that same safe harbor language provision in this plan. We did have a number of individuals who fell into the other Indo-European language category. And when we went through a 4-factor analysis, including surveying of our frontline staff, we identified that that category is several different languages. So there isn't one particular language that falls in this safe harbor language provision. The other major change to this program is this is just our urban system. So Dan and I had a conversation from VTrans in January, and the rural services will fall under the state's Title VI program because this new program will be in place for the next 3 years past the transition. I'm not sure if folks have any questions. It's a fairly simple plan, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you do have.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Folks have questions? Dan has a question. Or he just wants to wave, I'm not sure.
No, that's okay. I appreciate that, Amy. Jamie, just a quick question for you. Because of the process where VTrans does get involved, if the complaint can't be resolved at GMT, I see that you put in VTrans's contact address. Do you want to put in the generic email as well? You have the phone number, but there's a generic email that you can also include if you felt like you wanted to.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay, sounds great. I'll put it in the chat so that you can add it to that section of our contact us.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you, Dan. Other questions? Much less heartbreaking, we do need to approve this document and this plan. And I will entertain a motion to do that.
Alona's got her hand here in the boardroom.
Second.
Go for it. Way to go, boardroom.
I move that we adopt the May 2026 Title VI program included in the board packet.
I do second that.
Okay, thanks. Raj, you have a question? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? All right. Thank you for that and for the analysis and for putting that together. Dan, thanks for your input. And we will move on to talking about the Low-No grant program. Leighton.
And so, Dan, is that going to be you?
It is
Oops,
indeed,
sorry.
Clayton. I drew the short end of straw today. So Ross and I are dividing and conquering meetings.
Before we turn it over, I just want to say, really proud of the response that we've had since FTA reached out to us. Here within GMT, John Moore, Matt Kimball, Connor Smith really have been jumping through a lot of hoops to figure out how to respond. And then at VTrans with Dan and Ross and our friends at DEC have all been really good partners here. So Dan, let us know what happened.
Sounds good. And so I know some of the board members have heard a little bit of the backstory, but I'll give the full, history and how, how it all transpired. And so as Clayton alluded to, we were notified by the Federal Transit Administration, that's our Region 1 office. And this actually was back on the week of April the 6th. So we've been working on this for 2 weeks already, that we could not proceed with the purchase of the 17 electric buses and associated charging infrastructure under our federal fiscal year 23 Lono grant. This was after a lengthy review by the Federal Transit Administration Washington headquarters. We had been worried for quite a while, actually, for almost 2 years, at how slow this particular award was taking to get reviewed, concurrence from the regional office, and then ultimately obligated. And that's the real key here, right? Obligation means that we can actually spend the dollars, and we can draw those dollars in from the Federal Transit Administration. Without obligation, we are pretty much unable to even, if we brought a vehicle in, paying for it would be very difficult. So FTA notifying us that they wouldn't obligate that award unless we changed the propulsion system from electric to hybrid or propane or liquid natural gas or some other type of fuel, but it could not be diesel or gas. That was the other thing, right? The low-no funding was specifically dedicated to low and no emission vehicles only. And that was the pot of money that we were awarded. So that was the tricky thing in the whole scenario as well. So we quickly, started evaluating, okay, what buses do we have on order? So 6 buses have been ordered by GMT with VTrans's authorization, by the way. So, when we've got this thing called pre-award authority that allows us to actually purchase items before obligation of our grants. It's never happened before that we were declined obligation unless we changed the grant. So this is all brand new to us, by the way. And if you couldn't tell, this is being done to us, not with us. We did sort of head down a path where, okay, we need to figure out what we have ordered and what we can cancel. So thankfully, 6 electric buses have been ordered only. 4 of them could be canceled. And so GMT has already done that. And that leaves us with 2 electric buses too close to production at the factory in New Flyer. That's the brand of manufacturer for the buses. New Flyer could not cancel 2 of the electric buses without a stiff penalty. By the way, the penalty was as much as purchasing the buses. So, we had hoped it would be something less, but it wasn't. So what ended up happening is we quickly had to decide what to do with those 2 electric buses, right? And so now we're having really 2 paths, in this process. One, we've got the low and no emission bus grant that we need to switch to hybrid buses and purchase 17 buses with. Those 17 buses will be a mix of 35 and 40-foot buses, just like we wrote in our grant application, but we'll be changing those to hybrid. And then we also need to remove all charging infrastructure off that Lono grant. So everything that we've currently spent for chargers, any installation charges, any training, any equipment we've purchased, there's some backup charging that we also purchased. All of that had to be moved off of the grant and then assigned to a different pot of money. Thankfully, that Lono grant that we keep talking about actually has a lot of partners on it. It includes VTrans, GMT, Burlington Electric providing tier 3 funding, and then the Agency Natural Resource had contributed $2 million of VW settlement money. And if you remember, VW, falsified some emissions. We got millions and millions of dollars to purchase electric vehicles. So we actually, through a lot of work, like Clayton said, Matt, myself, and team have really been crunching the numbers to figure out what we can do if we only have the local match to purchase 2 electric buses, what we could do with it. We do have a pathway forward to purchase the 2 buses with, the money that VTrans has committed, the money that GMT has committed, the money that VW has committed, plus bringing in some older low-no funding that has been obligated, by the way, so we can spend it on electric buses and electric charging infrastructure to bring together really a portfolio of funding to help us bring in the 2 electric buses that are in order that we can't cancel. And so where do we stand, right? As of yesterday, we presented this plan in front of all the partners. We're waiting for final concurrence from the Agency Natural Resource to make sure they are in agreement with using the VW money this way. Every indication is that they will be, but we got to get their final sign off. As soon as that happens, we then need to really craft a item by item cost list and then start changing different grants at VTrans, right? Some of the grants that we'll be using, GMT is not even on, so we'll have to add them to the grant. We'll have to award this funding in fiscal year 27 to GMT Urban, and then allow them to purchase these 2 electric buses. A separate track, as I mentioned, is then to correct the 23 low-no grant with the 17 hybrid buses. That will be done separately and distinct. VTrans will work with GMT and the FTA regional office to update that grant and then get that obligated. FTA Region 1 has told us that they have full permission to obligate that grant as soon as it says hybrid buses and as soon as we remove electric vehicle charging infrastructure from it. So in maybe a couple months' time, that grant will be fully obligated. And it'll take that long just to change all the nuances in the application and all the supporting documents. It's a lot of admin work to do that administrative change for that obligation. So that's where we stand. Matt, do you want to say anything about the work you've been doing or any questions? Oh, yes.
I do see we have Tasha having a question and then Andrea. Matt, is it okay if we go to some questions first?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. I'm not sure I want to go down too far the rabbit hole of the details because a lot of this is out of our control. And I think Dan, you did a great overview and Clayton has been sending us updates. So Andrea and then, no, it was Tasha, then Andrea, sorry.
Either way. So just quickly, were some of these buses then going to RCT for the mountain route, or I'm just a little confused how this plays into that scenario?
Yeah,
thank you.
Great question, Tasha. These buses were not part of that low-no grant that's going to RCT for the Mountain Road Shuttle. That low-no grant was a grant that Marble Valley Regional Transit District had that they could not use. So we have reassigned that grant to RCT, Rural Community Transportation. And so, yep.
Thank you. Andrea?
That was one of my 2 questions was who lost out, but that's helpful. And I just wanted to clarify, you said the FTA had been reviewing this for 2 years. Does that mean that review started prior to the current administration?
Indeed it did, Andrea. Yes. Yep.
Was that, I guess...
No, unfortunately, there's no malice or from the Regional 1 office. They're actually a great partner of ours. Unfortunately, we kept having a change of staffing at the Regional 1 office prior to all of the reduction in force that the Regional 1 office sustained. We kept getting different coordinators assigned to our grants, and that coordinator switching just delayed the review 6 months or so, and then the new administration came in, and then their enhanced review occurred, and so it took them 18 months to review this grant. So yeah.
And you couldn't obligate the funds until that review.
We tried very hard to get the funds obligated a year ago, actually, when we were having other Lono grants obligated, and we kept getting pushed off. So,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea.
Other questions?
Here.
All right, boardroom.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just confused about the number. The final purchase is 17 hybrid and 2 electric.
Correct, for a total of 19 buses. Yep.
Thanks. I was getting confused in the numbers too, so I
Yeah.
appreciate that. That's okay.
And in the beginning, we were thinking that 17 would be the total, but because we have to break off the 2 EVs, it means that we'll actually get 19. So.
And just to be very, very clear, it seems as though, although not all have signed up, that if the grand scheme that you outlined goes through, that nobody is paying that penalty that equals the amount of a bus, right? Because we continue to get the buses. Okay.
That's correct, Amy. Yep. In
All
fact, VTrans is trying very hard to leave GMT harmless in this whole scenario.
Thanks.
You're only really asking for the match commitment that you have already added to the grant, and said that you could contribute it. We do have some Burlington Electric funding to bring in. And so that will help offset some of the match, but ultimately we're really trying to keep GMT harmless, with your local match, because, it's really important that we do this, as partners. So.
I appreciate that. And I see Raj is going to have a question. My comment is, I think we should tell the story particular to our legislators, because this really is the complexity, and to have in the same conversation that we are cutting a route that serves many people, and then potentially having to just pay a penalty because a change in federal policy is ridiculous, that's where our money would go, to a penalty instead of providing transit opportunities for people. I think is a story that really should be told, so that folks have an awareness of that behind the scenes chaos and the impact it has to our people, our riders. That's my soapbox for the moment. Raj, go for it.
Love that soapbox. Appreciate you trying to hold GMT neutral on this. Is the state still, if I read this correctly, and I tried to, still using $2 million that could be used elsewhere from the Volkswagen funds to clean this mess up? Is that true, or is that?
Well, it's a valid statement, yes. The VW money could also go to hybrids, but the current directions are to only apply it to EVs. So ultimately, the answer is yes and no. It's a very complicated pot of money that I do not manage, right? We have an MOU with A&R, VTrans does, that assigns this $2 million to us. And so because the VW settlement funding had a very specific date range that had to be used for a vehicle replacement. And GMT just happens to have all the right aged vehicles to really match up well, which is why they got given so much of it. Actually, the $2 million is one of the largest awards of the VW. But anyway, I won't go into it too much, but the real answer is that the money had to be spent no matter what.
Dan, I see Henry has a question, and I think then we'll have to move on as well. Henry?
Yeah, the electric bus technology isn't up to snuff. What is solid state batteries, and I've sent Clayton some emails on it. There are now buses with solid state batteries coming out. Okay, they're new, and that's a night and day difference. And I describe it because it's the same with EVs. I describe it as buying an iPod the year the iPhone came out. It's stupid. So the VW money that has a date, okay, for electric buses could be put into escrow or something, and don't just say yes or no without researching it. Set the money aside until the EV buses are actually a practical solution, which will be soon. Okay, it's like cars. There's solid state batteries that can be bought like everywhere on the planet except the United States. And the specs for a car are 1,000-mile range and 10-minute charge time. You can Google it. So it's a night and day difference. Highly recommend electric buses, but not yet. Find a way to get the VW money set aside so it isn't spent on an iPod.
Thanks. And I appreciate the conversation that you and Clayton had offline about that. And then I appreciate also Matt weighing in to just walk through. And again, this is part of the story that I think we should tell the legislature as well, is how complex it is to purchase a bus, having it must meet certain standards, American made, the FTC. I keep calling it the FTC. That's not fair. The FTA has to weigh in. They have approved authority, and it is nothing is as simple as that. But Henry, I appreciate you keeping us with our eye on the prize in the future. And Tim, did you want to weigh in, or are you just ready to move on to the next piece? I saw you come off mute.
I'm all set.
Okay. All right. Thank you for this. Lots of moving pieces, most completely out of our hands, but we do have no, this was just a discussion. We can take a deep breath. Well, Dan can't, but the rest of us can.
I will keep working on it. Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, thank you for working on it. And so we'll move forward to the next item, which is the state grant application, which is, I think, what Tim was preparing for. Go for it, Tim.
So Nick is going to speak to the operating lines request based on his budget. I did want folks to know that this is a joint process with all the team at GMT, where I centralize all the documents that are required for the application request in one location. And what we're doing today is we are proposing to the board our request for the operating lines, and then Matt will speak to the capital, but Nick's going to speak to the operating lines first.
So Matt was going to pull up the document. Perfect, thanks. So one of the nice things about the rural transfer is the state grant agreement gets much more simpler, at least for my part, on the operating side. As you can see, we only have about 7 line items there, and I'll walk you through them. And again, this funds the operating costs. Matt will cover the capital in just a minute. So starting, at the first line, state operating, that's simply just state funds. What this is showing you is essentially what we got last year, what we're requesting, what was in the budget, and the delta. So you can see that we're asking for about $100,000 increase in state operating, beyond just this funding the cost of running, the operations of the company. This is an important line because it helps us leverage the federal funds that are provided to us either directly or indirectly through VTrans. So it really serves two parts. Moving down to the federal funds that we get, and we refer to these as flex. These are highway funds that are given to VTrans, and then VTrans allocates them to us through this grant application process. So the first line there is the preventative maintenance. This funds all of the maintenance costs that go on here at GMT. As you can see, we are asking for $180,000 increase there from what we had in the budget and from what we got last year. Moving down to the CMAQ federal funding. This is funds that fund the operating costs of what we can call CMAQ routes. That stands for Congestion Mitigation Air Quality. There are routes that meet that criteria. One of the major benefits of CMAQ funding is it only requires a 20% local match. You can see we're asking for a little over $159,000 increase from what we had in the budget, but only roughly about a $95,000 increase from what we got last year. Moving down below that is some funding that is new. We actually just got it this fiscal year. VTrans is stated that they're very confident they can provide it to us again in 27. However, one of the budget issues we have in 28 is they are not confident we will get it in 28. So that is one of the little loss of revenue we're facing for FY 28. So there's no increase there at 700,000. We've had some struggle figuring out how exactly these funds can be used, but we're pretty confident we've figured that out now. So that's a good thing. And essentially these funds will be treated like CMAQ funds and also require only a 20% match. Moving on to mobility management, which is not a significant part of the budget. It's used to mostly fund wages and benefits of those folks that do activities that qualify under that grant. Sometimes we do, purchase services with the funding, for example, volunteer marketing, things like that. You can see we've asked for a small increase, about $5,000, just to kind of keep up with wage inflation. The nice thing is VTrans does provide us 10% of the 20% match that's required for that grant. So we did ask for a small increase to match the increase we're asked on the federal side. And then down below that is O&D funding. We have done a shopper route for South Burlington for many years. And we are asking for the funding to be able to continue providing that. So that was an urban O&D route. We dealt with that through a cost allocation because essentially all O&D funds run through the rural side right now. But we have talked with VTrans about this, and they say they do believe there's some funding that they can provide for that route. So we're requesting that. So all in all, $7.5 million increase. That's roughly a $460,000 increase from what we had in the budget. As you might remember, we passed a budget back in February with a sizable deficit. There has been a lot of change since that. We passed that budget, so we look forward to bringing that to you folks in a couple months. But if we were to get this and we were to assume that the approved budget that we passed still represents the current realities, that would cover a sizable amount of that deficit. And I can say that I think we're fairly confident we could cover the remainder of that deficit based on items that have been discussed since that budget passed. So happy to answer any questions. This was provided to the Finance Committee and the Leadership Committee.
Great. Paul, did Finance Committee have any conversation of note?
We did have conversations and we're supportive.
Okay, thank you. Questions? And I can't see everyone's face, so if everyone's okay, Nick, can you stop sharing so I can see people's hands plop up? Thank you. Any questions?
Alana?
And just so you know, we've got Matt's Capital after this too. So.
Oh, okay. So when you have a question, then we'll move on to Matt. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I just had a quick question on the South Burlington Shopper Special. I know that there was an additional assessment this year, and I'm curious if that is still there still an additional assessment?
Yeah. So we asked for $5,000 is roughly, the match required to run that route. So yeah, we did ask for an increase. We left it fairly flat for probably a decade, and then we did have to double it roughly to get it to where it should have been. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Matt, we'll kick it to you.
Thank you.
Okay, share this same presentation. So this is a high-level overview of the capital, really just focusing on the funding and the vehicles that we're requesting. So starting with our 5339 vehicle capital request, some of these are federal funding, others are state match to match direct federal awards to GMT from the most recent competitive bus and bus facility and Lono application cycle. So as mentioned in the prior agenda item, we've adjusted the electric bus from previously 6 that were on order. We canceled 4 of the 6, and we have the 2 remaining buses. I've done a projected split based on the discussions we've had with VTrans and A&R. This is all preliminary, but this is sort of giving overview of the funding allocation that we expect to have for those buses. So the 4 buses that are on order, that order has been canceled. New Flyer is preparing a proposal for hybrid buses. So we are including the hybrid buses in our 27 capital request. We are requesting 85% federal, 15% state, as the electric buses had a net zero local match from GMT. So we are seeking to have that be reflected with this next order of 4 hybrid buses. We have 6 propane cutaways. This is part of our Lono award from last year, totaling 1.15 million. We have the direct federal, so we're requesting 5% match from the state for those buses. Then we have 3 gas vehicles for our SSTA ADA service. This is from our bus and bus facilities award. 1 Ford Transit, 2 non-ADA minivans. Once again, just requesting the state there. And then in our 5310 vehicle capital request, we have O&D vehicles with SSTA. We are still in discussions with VTrans about the eventual split between ADA vehicles and O&D vehicles. Now that the Chittenden O&D program will be administered by RCT. But that has not been finalized, the identification of those vehicles. So for FY27, we're going to continue with the replacements of the O&D vehicles in that program. So this is requesting federal funds as well as state funds for those purchases, 1 cutaway, 1 Ford Transit. So our total vehicle capital request across both of those programs really comes down to this 1.849 million in federal and the 1.925,925.99 in state. What I will note is that a large portion of that state is the VW settlement funds that are going to be allocated towards the 2 electric buses that need to remain on order. Moving along to the non-vehicle capital. So we have, I've split this up into 2. We have non-vehicle capital that we are going to be requesting federal and state dollars from VTrans to see those projects forward, as well as state match only capital requests to match projects that are in our direct federal grants, which include the 5339 and Lono awards from this most recent cycle. So for the non-vehicle capital request, we are requesting 1.84 million in federal and 442,265 in state. I've broken that up between our FY26 carry forward projects and new capital requested in 27. The bulk of that 26 carry forward is the phase 2 charging infrastructure that is ongoing. We have purchase orders issued with New Flyer chargers set to be delivered. So that has been one of the discussion points between us, VTrans, and ANR about funding that, the remaining work there. And then, then we have our state match request for our direct federal non-vehicle capital projects. These are really a number of projects identified in our in the bus and bus facilities application, facility improvements at our main facility at 101 Queen City Park, as well as the propane infrastructure side of the LPG propane vehicle project with our ADA vehicles leased to SSTA. So bottom line, our total federal request is 1.84552 between those 2 groups of projects, and state match request of 560,668. I've kind of brushed past the local, but we have no local really on the coming from GMT on the vehicle side. That's either being picked up by Tier 3 funding for the 2 remaining electric vehicles, picked up by VTrans, or part of our lease agreement with SSTA, our vehicle lease agreement with SSTA for the vehicles that are leased there. On the non-vehicle capital side, we're looking at $185,336.60 in local funds from the FY27 operating budget. This aligns with the available funding that Nick was able to carve out there and balance the 27 budget. We have 67,269 coming from the local match fund, but what I will say is that is all carry forward projects. Here we have the 29,571 as part of our FY26 carry forward, and then the two projects with state matching funds identified, or actually I believe that's one project. That local match is from 26. So this is all money that's getting pushed to the fund at FY26 and being programmed in 27. So the grand total request is $3,689,557 in federal funds, $2,486,614.31 in state funds, and I noted down here this is including $1.641 million in VW settlement funds. The difference here between the $2 million that what's shown here and the $2 million that Dan mentioned is that the carry forward in our 27 grant application for the charging infrastructure project is a projection of the actual balance that would be carried forward. And I expect some major equipment deliveries and start of construction to take place in 26. So this is assuming a drawdown of some of those funds as part of those activities. So net of that, we are requesting $845,595 in state match funds per hour for our capital in 27.
Great. Thank you, Matt and Nick, for walking us through the state grant application and having to adjust it, I'm sure, last minute with all the changes going on with the Lono and that kind of stuff. So are there folks who Paul has a question, I see in the room.
Yeah, Matt, I noticed that none of the vehicles have an actual local match from GMT. Now you have potentially 17 hybrids coming in the coming years. What's going to be local match on those 17 buses?
So that is still being determined. I think that's going to be a discussion point between GMT and VTrans going forward. This is to what Dan mentioned before. They're going to seek to make GMT whole in this whole scenario, and really our local match commitment for the 17 electric buses was expected to be met through the Tier 3 incentive funding, and that's not funding that's going to be available for hybrids. So I would say the impact could be as much as $200,000 or more over those 17 vehicles. It could be much less than that, but that is something that GMT and VTrans are going to need to negotiate over the coming years.
200,000 per bus?
No, about 80 to 90,000 per bus, depending on the final dollar amount. We had projected, and I don't have that number in front of me, but I believe it was around $250,000 could be the local match impact with that switch from electric to hybrid.
Great question. Thanks. Other questions? Okay, this is an item that we do need to vote on so that it can be submitted later this month. There's a possible motion that was provided to us. If that works, if someone wants to make a motion, I'd appreciate it.
We did not. Question, we did not make a motion on the state grant, and you also need a motion on the capital budget adjustment, is that right?
Oh, thank you. I believe that is true.
Yep.
Okay, back it up. So we do need a motion on the state grant application, and then we will discuss the capital budget adjustment.
Okay, so I move to authorize staff to submit our fiscal year 2027 state grant application as described.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Andrea. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Austin, was that a delayed aye?
A very delayed aye.
Okay, we are appreciative. Delays happen. No opposition, any abstentions? Okay, so the state application is going to go forward. And then we do need, Matt, what you just presented was part of the state grant application, wasn't it?
What I presented was the capital portion of our state grant application. We have a separate FY27 capital budget adjustment that's not related to the 27 state grant application.
All right, so that is where we're going next on the agenda, and I thought we had caught up on time, but I was so wrong. So Matt, I'm going to toss it to you for the next item on the agenda.
Yeah, and hopefully we can make up some time.
That'd be great.
So we really just have one change on the FY27 capital budget, and I'm pulling up the budget itself. There is a memo accompanying this that was in the board packet. But essentially, we had in our original approved FY27 capital budget 4 heavy-duty hybrid buses. And we, at the time of putting this together, didn't have a funding pathway for the hybrid buses. Now we do, but we do have a direct federal award from the Bus and Bus Facilities grant, competitive grant opportunity last year that included 3 40-foot diesel buses. So we're seeking to program those into the 27 capital budget at this time so that we can issue purchase orders in advance of the next fiscal year, when we would do a subsequent capital budget adjustment that aligns with the state grant agreement once that's been agreed upon between GMT and VTrans. But we're hoping to get ahead of that a little bit and issue purchase orders for our 3 40-foot buses from our direct federal award. These buses would not be delivered until FY28. We do have an agreement with VTrans that the state match shown here, this 156,600, that will be set aside for GMT in FY28. So we have a commitment for those funds, for the state matching funds. We have a grant award from we have a grant award from the FTA for the federal share for these 3 40-foot buses. Grants are not obligated, but we do have pre-award authority. We have built the grant in trams. It's with FTA for review at this time. So we have the 3 40-foot buses. This is really a reduction in the line item from what the board approved. This line originally was $3,698,556 for the 4 hybrid buses. This is being reduced to $2,088,000 for the 3 40-foot buses at $695 each, plus a third-party inspection for about $3,000. So our request to the board is to approve this capital budget adjustment, as well as to delegate approval authority to the board chair and the board treasurer for issuing the purchase order for the 3 vehicles. New Flyer, we've approached New Flyer and Gillig about these funds. New Flyer has a better lead time for delivery of the buses than Gillig. So we are waiting on a proposal from New Flyer to utilize a state of Virginia contract. The competitive award, we actually indicated that we would utilize a competitive cooperative contract that's actually preferred by the FTA for smaller orders like this, as opposed to issuing a new RFP. So we're seeking to use that procurement method, but we are waiting on that proposal from New Flyer. This would be a not to exceed amount of that $2,088,000 figure there in FY27 or in the FY27 capital budget.
Great. Thank you for the description and the continued description of those complexities of how we order and all of those pieces. I think it really helps to understand
how hard you all work to find the most advantageous, most inexpensive method to order and to do business. So I appreciate that. Is there any further discussion, questions for Matt? Okay. And so today, the motion is to, well, the proposed motion is again written in the suggested, wow, brain. Okay, let's start again. Would anybody like to make a motion that would approve this change? A suggested language has been sent ahead. I'm going to stop talking.
I will. Oh. I will move to amend the fiscal year 2027 capital budget as proposed and to delegate purchase approval authority to the board chair and treasurer for 3 40-foot heavy duty diesel buses.
Thank you.
I will second that.
Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Or abstentions? Okay, we are moving forward. Thank you, Matt, for that. And Clayton, I think you are up with the general manager report.
I am. And so I will keep this brief, and we'll send a written report out this afternoon to provide a little more detail. Wanted to let folks know that I will be making a second push to get our ADA assessment change through. We've had 4 towns vote on it and vote on it affirmatively. I'll be in Williston tonight, Shelburne next Tuesday, and Milton on May 4th. And so if 2 of those 3 vote yes, then the change to our ADA assessment will have been made. We're leaving Burlington as last, just because Burlington has a much more cumbersome process to go through, and so if we have the votes necessary without their vote, I think that is kind of what we're hoping there. For the legislative update, the T-bill has been voted out of the Senate Transportation Committee, and it, as with the House Transportation Committee, it largely adopts the governor's budget. One of the fun things that will be happening starting on April 27th is that we'll have another international fellow. This time, Fernanda Inga from Ecuador will be here with us for 4 weeks. She has a background in international business, and she's going to be helping me with researching and writing some of the pricing and for service agreements and unlimited access plans that we need to work on. And so that will be very helpful, and it's always nice to have somebody from a different background to learn from. One thing that I did want to let folks know is that Jamie and her team and the planning team have worked to create a new rider demographic survey that will be going out in the next few weeks. This will be our first rider demographic survey since the pandemic, and it will provide us with a lot of different information that will be helpful as we consider our future funding challenges. One of the things that Jamie did want me to mention is that with our Title VI program, we, as you can see from the handout, that took a lot of work, a lot of data work that was done. We were able to do that entirely in-house, which is something that normally we've had to contract out. That saved us $5,000, but more importantly to me, it's just part of our building our internal capacity and expertise. And so really happy that that was done. Lastly, we're going to be migrating over the next several months to a new website. I think that for folks who are involved with municipalities, they'll recognize the name. We're going to be migrating to Civic Plus. So 7 of our 8 member municipalities use Civic Plus to help them with their select board and city council items. The reason why we moved to this was that there's new laws regarding ADA accessibility for websites, and our existing website was not compliant. And Civic Plus's website will be fully compliant. The other thing that we like about Civic Plus is that it is modular, and that one of the features that we anticipate adding on in the future is See, Click, Fix module, which would allow the public to be able to highlight changes that are not changes, but highlight if there's, say, a stop amenity that needs attention, that they would have an automated system that would do that. Tasha, I see your hands up.
Yep. Thanks, Clayton. Just a quick question, since updating the website, just because we went through this at our office, does GMT carry cybersecurity insurance? We made the transition because it seemed like a very important thing in the current environment.
Yes, and so our insurance plan that we get, that Nick does with our main insurance, liability insurance purchases, covers cybersecurity.
Oh, thank you. Great.
Yep. And so that will be the only items that I have. And like I said, I'll send a written report out to folks by the end of the day.
Gotcha. Look at you speeding along. I think our next item on the agenda are committee reports, if I'm correct. Yep.
Yes.
So we'll start with finance because they're always the one I can think of first.
We did meet, and you've covered a couple of items already. We did get a finance report from Nick, which was through the end of February. Nick, is that correct? And it looks like we're running pretty close to on budget, so that's pretty good news.
Thank you. I will do a leadership report in that a lot of what we talked about was things we talked about today, the grant application, capital requests. We talked a little bit about the service committee, which we'll talk about in a second separately. And what's going on with the FTA, a lot of the stuff that we talked about, but also, as you know, we all participated and completed a 360 review of Clayton, and the leadership team is going to meet for a special meeting, hopefully next week, and just figure out our process for that. I shared with you all that I've never supervised anybody before, so the steps to do things are a little bit unknown to me. So we're taking an extra step to figure out what's what, and then we'll move forward. So that was the last piece of what we talked about. Unless I missed anything, Austin, Susan, Andrea, Paul? No. Okay. And then service committee. Clayton, would you give us a little update of our service committee? We met for the first time on April 1st.
Absolutely. And so we met for our first, I believe it was Thursday the 2nd. It was a great first meeting because we had a lot of new information to share. First, we were very proud to be able to share the dashboard that our planning team has put together. And I think it really highlights and demonstrates the increased skill and capacity with data manipulation and reporting that we're developing. And so if folks have not gone out to visit the dashboard yet, I'd highly encourage you to do so. I'll include a link to it with my written update. We also heard from Jamie about a new rider alert system that will be very helpful for us. One of the things that I'm extremely happy about is that as some folks know, we ask an awful lot of Jamie and Ash, our marketing coordinator. They, from about 5 a.m. until about midnight, 359 days of the year, the two of them are covering our service alerts. So that means a lot of early mornings and late nights when things change. And we have a new service alert system that will allow our operations field supervisors to be able to make changes in the field that will then cascade out for our living riders know, to include having those changes cascade to things like Google Maps and Apple Maps. And so that's a wonderful improvement. And then lastly, at leadership, we talked about whether we wanted to have rider technology be part of the service committee's purview. There was some concern about the service committee having a very wide purview. And so I think that we will start with the service committee having technology under it. But I think that we may come to realize in the future that we need to dedicate another committee to that. We also talked about the interplay between the service committee and the finance committee as we start getting metrics that will look at financial efficiency of our service. Anything I missed, Amy?
No, I was looking at my notes. I think the other thing is that we just discussed, we're still figuring out what's what, and the key performance indicators, we haven't identified all that. And so there's work to continue, but it's exciting, especially with all the changes and work that's being done with the dashboard and so on internally. So thank you all for that. It's super exciting. And gosh, are those our committees? That's it, right? No, vision.
I can
Yes.
give a quick update on the vision committee work, Amy.
Yes,
So
please.
I think we've met now 5 times, and we've completed our analysis of our outreach to key stakeholders, which included a survey and some focus groups. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to publish those findings on the GMT website in the next week or so. So we're currently in the process of putting together a draft vision statement for the organization, and we hope to share that with you at our May meeting. And after that, we will work on updating our mission statement as needed, and then move on to a discussion of our organizational values and strategic priorities. So that, I think, brings us up to date. Our next meeting is, I believe, Thursday, April 30th at 4 p.m. Jamie, can you confirm that?
Confirmed.
Great.
Awesome. So super impressive, by the way. The visioning committee is kicking butt and it's achieving all its outlined ambitious steps. So thank you for your leadership there, and for all who have been participating multiple times a month. That's amazing. Okay, I think those are the committee reports. Sorry, I almost forgot vision. That seems silly. Are there any commissioner comments?
We have a hand up in the boardroom.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I just wanted to compliment Greenmount Transit again on the dashboard, and Chris, your team. I found it super helpful actually just during the discussion of the board today to be able to refer to it and just look at the numbers. And it was just super easy to access what I wanted to find out. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Oh, Andrea.
I agree on the dashboard. I also just want to acknowledge that none of us got onto this board to cut service, and it's always a really hard conversation to have, and often always goes contrary to what I think we all want, which is a robust public transit system. So it's not easy. And yeah, I wish we were operating in a different funding environment than we are.
Gosh, I appreciate that statement, Andrea, and I think it holds true. It certainly does for me. And I do appreciate
the opportunity to have a change in our charter that allows us to kind of try different solutions. When one doesn't work, we can perhaps look at another. And I think that creativity has been important. And I think there's continued creativity that hoping we haven't thought through and will present itself as ideas from any one of us or staff members or the public. And so I appreciate everyone's commitment to continuing to find ways to move people around in an efficient, meaningful way. Any other board comments or staff comments? Okay. I do not know how we ended up 5 minutes ahead of schedule. I thought for sure it was going to be 11 o'clock when we adjourned, but with no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks, Andrea.
I'll second.
Thanks, Susan. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed or abstaining? And we are all set. Thank you all for your time and your thoughtfulness and your creativity. Enjoy spring. See you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.